Today, the U.S.'s war with Iran is sparking doubt from within.
We're here, dozens and dozens of veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. We're here because we don't want service members today to make the same mistakes we made.
As opposition to the war with Iran grows, some inside the U.S. military are starting to question what they're being asked to do. I'm Malika Bilal, and this is The Take. Hey everyone. As always, we'd love to hear how today's topic is resonating with you. As you're watching this episode on YouTube or Spotify, leave us a comment and let us know. If you're listening to the audio version of this conversation on your favorite podcast app, we want to hear from you too. Leave us a review and reach out on social media, where you can find us at AJE Podcasts. Now, here's today's show.
My name's Mike Prysner. I'm the Executive Director at the Center on Conscience and War.
Mike, welcome to The Take. It's really good to have you. I want to start with this moment that's gone viral. It happened at the music festival Coachella in California, where I am. And in this clip, Julian Casablancas, who's the lead singer of the rock band The Strokes, was on stage, and he'd said something that took some of the people in the crowd by surprise.
You guys excited about the draft? Oh, wait, no, not the NFL draft. I'm talking about in 6 months, I think everyone's going to have to register who's eligible for the military. You guys excited? No, whoops, no.
Now, I want to be very clear. The U.S. does not have the draft right now. There hasn't been a military draft since 1973. So what is he actually referencing here?
Yeah, so the way it works in the United States is we have what's called the selective service, which is basically registering yourself for the draft. So anyone born a male between the ages of 18 and 24, you're technically required to sign yourself up for the selective service, but it's not enforced. So if you don't do it, nobody really cares. And so, people do it because it sometimes when you get a driver's license, it's a box that you check. Sometimes if you want a certain type of student loan, you have to register for the selective service. But by and large, it's an unenforced aspect of the American military system. What is happening is that in the last defense budget, it was this measure that was just snuck into the last defense budget that was passed by Congress, which basically said they were going to just automatically register anyone in that demographic I described for the draft. And so the reason this is a problem is because this is an invasion of privacy. This hurts trans and undocumented immigrant people. There are many people who their religious beliefs would prevent them from registering for the selective service in the first place. This completely gets rid of any mechanisms that they have to be able to refuse to register for the selective service. And I think the reason that it caused so many groans in the crowd at Coachella is because, this is stuff that had already been planned. Like they already been planned to make this automatic draft registration thing. And so it probably wouldn't have hit as hard as it is now because the news broke at the same time there is a disastrous escalating war in the Middle East. And so, of course, that's what's on everyone's mind. Oh, you're telling me that we're getting into World War III while at the same time we're all going to be automatically registered. And so, yeah, it hit hard, clearly for that reason.
Yeah, and people are definitely talking about it online. We've seen people really expressing their unhappiness with this.
I don't think they understand that if they ever try to draft your average American citizen, we're just going to jail.
Who do these people think we are? Honestly, they think so little of us. There's no chance I'm going to war for you. I will flee. I will go to jail. I will threaten.
So, Mike, as you said, this is all happening as the U.S. is in the middle of a war with Iran. Trump has deployed around 10,000 troops to monitor security in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, has clarified that while a draft is not part of the current plan, President Trump is keeping all options on the table.
The president, as commander-in-chief, wants to continue to assess the success of this military operation. It's not part of the current plan right now, but the president, again, wisely keeps his options on the table.
So what does that mean to you? Is there going to be a draft? Can you see that happening?
Well, look, a large-scale war in Iran, I'm not really sure the U.S. has the manpower for that kind of thing. The war in Iraq, which was against a much less formidable military, right? I mean, Iraq had lost all conventional weapons, and it was a lot of ingenuity and guerrilla warfare tactics to fight, the huge military might of the U.S. military. Iran has really sophisticated, advanced conventional weapons, which we have seen. It's actually surprised the U.S., and it's been very hard for them to adapt to these tactics. In the Iraq War, there wasn't a draft, but there was what we called a backdoor draft. So my generation, if you served during the troop surge era, you could not get out of the military. When your contract ended, they kept you in past your contract. It was called stop loss. And thousands and thousands of soldiers who were supposed to get out, who served their 4 years or whatever, how many number of years it was, and were forced to stay in the military and go on more combat deployments. If they hadn't done that in the Iraq War, it's quite possible they would have had to have a draft to be able to meet those demands. A large-scale war in Iran, which Trump has, of course, they said nothing is off the table. So that includes a large-scale ground war in Iran. Yeah, of course they have to think about the draft as an option because they know from experience it is very difficult to wage a war like that without a certain number of troops. I think, the reason that the U.S., as you mentioned, has not had a draft since the Vietnam War, the Pentagon has been very strategic about avoiding a military draft at all costs. And that's because the last time there was a draft, there was a large-scale rebellion within the United States military.
Jim McCall is typical of thousands of young Americans who feel strongly enough about the United States' role in Vietnam to defy their local draft boards. They condemn the war as immoral and choose to outlaw themselves from their own country rather than take up arms. Anti-draft demonstrations, often involving the burning of draft cards, are one of the most frequent expressions of protest among the youth of America today.
So they learn their lessons of that. Look, and they know that it's a danger. If they enact a draft, it's going to instantly create some level of resistance from within the armed forces, especially if that war starts going badly.
So you mentioned a rebellion back during the Vietnam War time. It might be too much of a stretch to say that's happening right now, I take it, but there is discontent, right? You are the executive director of the Center on Conscience and War, and you are hearing that discontent firsthand. You help service members who are questioning their role in the military. What are you hearing?
Yeah, we have a hotline where soldiers can call and learn about their rights. Since the Iran war started, we've fielded hundreds and hundreds of calls from service members who are completely opposed to participating in the war. Of those calls, over 100 have actually taken steps to file as conscientious objectors, which means you are getting yourself discharged from the military because since joining, you had a profound change in beliefs to the point where you cannot participate in killing at all, directly or indirectly, in any kind of support role. And many of these people had imminent deployments, were days or hours away from deploying to the Middle East. And it's a range of people. It's lower enlisted, it's high-ranking officers, it's fighter pilots, it's physicians, it's infantry personnel. It's really every branch of the military, people from all branches and all, generations of people who have joined, in the past 10, 15 years. There's a real revulsion at what they are seeing. The number one thing that we hear from these callers is the bombing of the Manab Girls' School. Had a very profound impact on people, of course, but these are gears that started turning prior to that, right? I mean, people in the military now witnessed the Israeli war on Gaza through their phones. We're really able to see the impacts of modern warfare waged with impunity by a country like Israel and the United States. And so when this war started, with Israel, beginning with the U.S. carrying out the same type of action that Israel became notorious for throughout that war, that, of course, was a breaking point for a lot of people. Comparatively, the number of clients that we have now filing as CO, in the past month, it's about double what we normally handle in a single year.
Wow.
And compared to the war on terror, it is the highest rate and frequency of people filing a CO than at any point during the entire wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so I think it represents a real shift in public consciousness. The American people are opposed to this war. That's what's reflected in the military. But people in the military in particular are young Americans, people who have gone through a significant shift in their consciousness in this country, people who grew up as children during the war on terror and remember its lessons. And so, again, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the 1.3 million people serving in the U.S. military. But most people in the military do not know about their CO rights and, of course, do not know about our organization. So in a very small sample size, just within our small reach, our small bubble of people that find our phone number, find our social media. I would say it's a pretty significant frequency.
You mentioned hearing from people about the Menab school attack. What else are people telling you about why they no longer feel comfortable? Because I imagine this has to be a very difficult decision. It's not like anyone willy-nilly signs up for the military and then decides, oh, no, I've changed my mind completely without something making them change their mind.
Oh, you're completely right. Because think about this, too. You're telling your brothers and sisters in arms, you're telling your comrades, your fellow service members, I can't take part in this. I'm out of here. I'm leaving you guys. And so it's a really difficult decision for people because there's of course social pressure from within. There's fear of retaliation, but there's also people feel a real loyalty and responsibility to the people that they're serving with. The people that call us and begin to file a CO, they do so because they have no other choice. They cannot do their jobs. They cannot do what they're being told and take part in the killing of people in Iran or elsewhere in the Middle East. In terms of some other reasons that people are mentioning, other than the Menab girls' school, of course, when Pope Leo had come out and started making statements against the war.
I would simply say, once again, what I said in the Urbi et Orbi message on Sunday, asking all people of goodwill to search always for peace and not violence, to reject war, especially a war which many people have said is an unjust war.
We had a large number of people call because that inspired them and made them realize that they couldn't reconcile their job with their spiritual beliefs. Conscientious objector is not just available to religious people, though. It's any deeply held moral belief. So religious and non-religious, those both apply. I think a kind of another overarching kind of theme that we hear with callers, though, is of course, there's specific incidents, the bombing of the girls' school, the bombing of civilian infrastructure, Trump's threats to wipe out Iranian civilization, to bring them back to the Stone Age. That is a particular thing that we've heard, but it is part of like a kind of overall erosion in trust and confidence in their leadership. I mean, look at Donald Trump, look at J.D. Vance, look at Pete Hegseth, right? Look at Tulsi Gabbard, look at the people that are in charge of this military machine. They're kind of weird people. Unless you are really in to their kind of far-right politics, you don't see them as competent. You don't see them as credible. You don't see them as worthy of following into battle and dying or killing other people because these guys say that you need to do it. And so I think in general, even people who aren't really political, they can see that there's no real explanation for this war. Why are we fighting it? It's for these people that are kind of freaks. That they see as freaks and are kind of embarrassed by them. Yet they are being sent to die because Trump is embarrassed that this war blew up in his face and didn't go as easy as he thought. So I think it's a pretty reasonable conclusion to come to that you don't want to take part in this. And the barrier is that most service members don't know that they actually have options to not take part in it.
You mentioned Pete Hegseth, of course, the defense secretary, and he's trying to change the ethos of the military. In a 2025 speech, he talked about woke policies that he's fighting against, and he wants to move the military towards a strict warrior ethos.
For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called firsts. We became the woke department.
How much of a factor is that?
Yeah, I mean, he's created a strange environment, to say the least. I think that's obviously a part of it. People like Hegseth, they have a vision of what the military should look like. It should be an organization of hardened killers, I think is the way he likes to present it, but also one of men and of white men in particular. I think it is important to point out that this anti-DEI, anti-woke military measures, they are targeting women, they're targeting Black service members in particular. And this is significant because African Americans are disproportionately represented in the military compared to the U.S. population. Hegseth has taken there's been this kind of like pretty clearly racist measures, right? Like the banning of Black History Month observation among the military, which had always been a tradition, the banning of Black student groups at military universities. Wow. But I think the single biggest thing is that he is basically kicking black men out of the military who have a skin condition that prevents them from shaving. That is about 45% of black service men in the military. And that is a dramatic thing to say you're going to purge, almost half of black men in the military over a thing that post-World War II, a change that was made because of the advance of the civil rights struggle and the struggle against racism within the military. And so this is an ideology that really goes back to the Civil War. The Confederacy was horrified at the fact that black men were allowed to serve in the U.S. military. They had a policy of execution or returning them to their former masters if they were captured on the battlefield. Post-World War I, black men were targeted and lynched for coming home in their military uniforms. It didn't matter that they served their country honorably. What mattered is that black men with guns was unacceptable to a certain sector of the white racist population. And that is the same line of ideology that is now at the top of the Pentagon. And so when we think about these kind of broader geopolitical issues that soldiers are being sent to fight, they're doing it while they're being attacked themselves within the military by a government that clearly is against them.
Well, Mike, earlier you talked about the number of calls you get, though the volume has increased, might be considered a drop in the bucket compared to those who are enlisted. But we know there is a minority then who is vocal, who is noisy, who's loud. You're among them. We're seeing that spill out into real life, including these protests that you were a part of in Washington, D.C. this week. Capitol Police arrested dozens of vets and military family members protesting the U.S. war on Iran. There's a video of you. Your hands are behind your back. You're being taken away, escorted away by an officer, and you are explaining why you're there.
This is a war based on lies. This is a war killing innocent people. Get out now. Exercise your rights to get out now.
What happened? What do you want people to know?
Yeah, well, I was there with about 150 veterans from Vietnam, Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, military families, including people who have loved ones deployed to the Middle East right now who are in the combat zone. And we were there to say that we have learned the lessons of letting politicians, rich politicians, lie us into wars, that once those wars start going badly, they don't do the right thing and leave. They continue to sink deeper and deeper into it. I know I can speak for all of the other veterans that were there with me that, we've lived our lives with a lot of regret about the fact that we fell for those lies and, didn't exercise our rights to refuse to take part in it. And we wanted to build the pressure. The public is against the war, but we need to make Congress feel it because they keep approving tens of billions of dollars to give to Trump to continue to wage this illegal and immoral war. And so in the Capitol building rotunda, where the Congress has all of their offices, we were making a lot of noise. And around 70 of us got arrested in a civil disobedience action there. And we were trying to send a message to Congress that if you're going to continue to do this war, most of Congress supports the war. Most Americans do not. So that's kind of antithetical to democracy. And so if they are going to continue to facilitate this war, we're going to continue to make it difficult for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the final minute I have with you, Mike, you mentioned you were in the military. You were honorably discharged. You served during the Iraq War. Is it possible to have a moral army?
I think in this era of modern warfare, especially waged by aggressor countries like the United States, targeting civilian populations is part of that. Occupying civilian populations is part of that. I can only speak to the military I was part of, but armies are supposed to be defensive. They're supposed to protect your country. The U.S. military doesn't do that. U.S. military goes to other countries to fight them. And so in that context, I think no. I think that's why people who are in the military today have every right to file as a conscientious objector, because there is no scenario in which they wouldn't have to be doing something that hurts civilians. And look, even if they're hurting combatants, these are people in their own countries who are being attacked by us. And there's really no morality in that, what we've seen, especially over the past 25 years.
Mike, thank you for walking us through the work that you do.
Thank you.